Morena, Atamari. I hope everyone had a great weekend. Wow, I'm up to reading number 12. We're nearly finished chapter 2. And for those of you who have just tuned in for the first time, my name is Dr. Diana Kopua. I am here in Gisborne and started reading maybe 2 weeks ago from this book from a psychiatrist, Dr. Joanna Moncrief, a straight talking introduction to psychiatric drugs, the truth about how they work and how to come off them. And a disclaimer that I don't want anyone who's on psychiatric medication to come off straight away. And nor do I want to work with anyone individually. And that's because Te Kurahuna, the place where Mark and I manu kura for, our intention is very deliberate, and that is to work and assist and collaborate with those we engage with to change the system. So when you are looking to change the system needs to be the focus and the practitioners within the system, as opposed to the individuals that the system is organized to support. And as this book has led us into, there are many ways of harming and helping. And I'm just going to get on in there and start with the end of chapter 2, which is looking at, got a big chapter, wasn't it? Looking at quite a few things, how the psychiatric drugs work, the fact that there's an alternative model when looking at drugs, the disease-centered model and the drug-centered model, and really challenging the idea that mental disorders are a result of chemical imbalances, and that there's no evidence that theory was proven. The spellbinding effects of psychiatric drugs, and let me just hold on to that for a second. The effects of psychoactive drugs, including psychoactive drugs, including psychiatric drugs, as disabling normal brain function, was described by a psychiatrist, Peter Bregan. And psychoactive drugs can slow us down or speed us up, and they may cause more or less subtle changes. But whatever they do exactly, they generally reduce the flexibility and sensitivity of normal brain reactions and behavior. And so what that does is impacts our higher human functions, including emotional responsiveness, social sensitivity, self-awareness or self-insight, autonomy, and self-determination. And because those mental dysfunctions can impair people's ability to perceive how the drug is affecting them, and it leads people to thinking they are performing better than they really are, and Bregan, the psychiatrist, referred to that as the spellbinding effect. Joanna Moncrief talks about the effects of long-term use, the history of understanding of drug action and evidence for models of drug action. And we're just finishing off chapter 2 with implications for treatment. So yeah, morena kia tātou katoa, kia ora, everyone, morena I haka, morena. Okay. Whew. No coffee this morning. I'm going to have my coffee after so it doesn't go cold and I don't slurp while I'm reading to you. Okay. Whether you adopt the disease or drug-centered model of drug action makes a difference to how you view the usefulness and potential dangers of drug treatment. Because the disease-centered model suggests that drugs are correcting an underlying disease or abnormality, it tends to favor the use of drugs and encourages us to understate their dangers. The disease-centered model tells a heroic and optimistic story about modern technology combating a biological enemy. What's not to like, right? The adverse effects the drugs induce, although not completely denied, get overlooked in all the enthusiasm. The trouble is that this story is just not justified. There is no convincing evidence that any type of psychiatric drug works in a disease-centered way. The drug-centered model tells a different and more worrying story. It emphasizes that drugs are foreign substances that change the normal functioning of the body. It highlights that we don't even know all the ways in which the drugs are changing it and what the short and long-term consequences of these changes are. The drug-centered model urges us to presume that drugs will be harmful, even though we may decide on some occasions that, on balance, the risks involved are worth taking. Adopting a drug-centered approach enables us to have a comprehensive and realistic view of what drugs can and cannot achieve in the arena of mental health. So that's chapter 2, and the key things are this disease-centered model versus the drug-centered model. And the disease-centered model really looks at medication that can impact the disease process. It might not get rid of the disease, but it might reverse the process or slow it down so that your symptoms or experiences are not impacting you as greatly. Moncrief talks about psychiatry or mental health problems as having no valid evidence that it is a disease process that we experience when we're distressed, severely distressed, and that there's no evidence that what we have been led to believe, which is that mental health problems are a result of a chemical imbalance. There's no proof, no evidence for that. But given that we have been led to believe that without it being challenged, then when you or your family or others around you are really distressed, what we tend to think is that there are experts out there who can manage this problem because it's not in your realm. You don't understand it. You're not well versed in sitting in it. And so you leave it to experts. But the problem is that if we consider that a chemical imbalance exists, we consider that these mental health problems are a disease process, then we're likely to leave that to the experts. And the experts are doctors. And the doctors who are experts in working with people with emotional problems are psychiatrists. And that's problematic because mental health problems aren't from a chemical imbalance. And if we were to follow the line of mental health problems not being an illness, then that means that it's not just psychiatrists that need to shoulder this problem, that we all have to think about this problem. And when we have our family or others or ourselves in distress, then we are offered medication, and we see that medication is helping with this disease process. That's dangerous because we're more likely to be enthusiastic about the medication helping bring the person we love back to a state of normality or their usual way of functioning. And a lot of times we are told that they need to stay on that medication for a long time, if not for their life. And doing so is absolutely harmful and increases the risk of many problems. So looking at the model of drug taking in another way, the drug-centered model means that we are taking this drug to alter the mind. Altering the mind will impact the way we think, the way we feel, the way we act, and our ability to critique what's going on for us. And that if we find benefit in the drugs for helping people's sleep or reduce the severity of their experiences under a drug-centered model, then we are looking at the dangerous impacts of the drug and won't be considering the plan for the person in distress without also including the dangerous impacts of this medication. So just a short session today, and I hope that that's really helpful for you. Not sure if you have any questions. I'll hang on for a little bit longer just in case you do. But a short session to start our week. And I won't be here tomorrow. We're traveling to Manaia. There's a beautiful wānanga happening in Manaia. We've been there for the last 2 years. It's probably worth talking about actually just briefly. So Te Kurahuna, the limited liability kaupapa that we work in, that Mark and I work in. We have a team that's a growing team actually. I think at least 18 people in our team now. And many of us are going up tomorrow morning to be with Manaia, at Manaia Marae, in the Coromandel in Hauraki. And we've been working with Te Koro Waihaoro Hauraki for the last 2 years. And I can tell you, we've been measuring the impact of having Mahi Atua as a kaupapa in a mental health and addiction service. They became Te Kūwatawata ki Hauraki, and you can call them on 0508 111 555 to experience what it's like to have an alternative way of working that's not biomedically focused. They are although they are a kaupapa Māori organisation, about 52% non-Māori. For the 48-ish% who are Māori coming into the service, their effect, using an effective score. So in the book, they talk about effective and what that means, and it can mean different things for different people. And what we're considering is the effect size, or what we're measuring is how effective are we from the time that you come into the service to the time that you leave the service. And what we've been measuring that change, and what we're seeing is that the effect size for Māori is the same and sometimes a little bit better than for the total scores. So we're rapt about that. We can also tell you that the number of people referred into the service who require inpatient admission is, well, actually we had trouble measuring that. So I'll get back to you on that. We had trouble measuring it because we couldn't recall anyone. So that's a good thing. And I am a psychiatrist, but I'm not working in there to provide clinical assessments for anyone. In fact, we are helping with the system, with the practitioners, and many of the whānau there are not requiring a clinician per se, including a psychiatrist. And last week when we posed this question, there are only 2 people in the service who have coercive, who are coerced into treatment, and that's not necessarily in Te Koro Waihaoro or Hauraki, but that these 2 people are actually in the DHB-led mental health service, who is very biomedically focused. So we're really proud of those outcomes. If you're interested, if you live in the Hauraki geographical boundary, then please know that if you have whānau in distress, you can call 0508 111 555. We're just rolling this kaupapa out. You may have caught our launch also in Auckland, South Auckland and Waikato, and the areas that you can go to are Ruapōtaka Marae to Papakura Marae, Te Hononga, and then down in Waikato, Kōkiri and Rangaiti, and also the NHC. Now, all of these organisations can be accessed by one number, and that's 0800 Mahi Atua. Now, I can't tell you what those numbers are. I haven't remembered the name off by heart, but Mahi Atua is MAHIA Atua, so 0800 Mahi Atua, if you're in the vicinity of those areas that I just talked about in Auckland, South Auckland, and all the way down through Waikato down to Kōkiri, down in Taumarunui. So if you have whānau in distress, those te kuwatawata services, and you can call those numbers and experience what we consider is an alternative and kaupapa Māori driven, prioritising mātauranga Māori, always looking out for ways in which racism is impacting you, us, the whole system, and hoping to be flexible and adaptive to change it. Now, if you're not happy with the service, we care and we want that feedback. So what we're busy trying to do is to create safe spaces for you to let us know if what you're experiencing isn't effective for you. And if it's not effective, then it's our job to be able to shapeshift, to be flexible and adaptive and meet your needs so that they're tailor-made to suit you as an individual and as a whānau. So give that a go. As I'm reading this out, it's all part of that bigger kaupapa of us being able to shift away from this pipeline that takes us straight into mostly a secondary service, and a lot of the times a primary mental health service that is just like a mini institution replicating the secondary service. Now, this isn't about the individual practitioners. This is not what I think they want, but this is the system that we've struggled to shift. And actually that is to do with the fact that individual practitioners in the service haven't really been able to trust and change the way that they're working for many reasons. And so that was my blurb. Tune in for, Wednesday and Thursday. I won't be here, so I'll see you again on Friday morning. We'll try and do a couple of lives, but we'll be back into the book. So for those interested, you can purchase this book online. There's a series of them. And for others who just want me to read it out, I'm going to keep reading, see how we go. Mōrena, ngā mihi.